Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and here we go. 3 things that you need to know before you start collecting. The first thing is why you're starting to collect. It's okay to collect for value. It's okay to collect for passion. It's okay to collect because you're interested. It doesn't matter the reason why so much as long as you have one, and as long as you have one valid enough that will keep you interested in the hobby. Your why when it comes to collecting anything is extremely important. I just so happen to collect video games, but this could really be applied to anything you're collecting: vinyl records, cards, comic books, bottle caps, stamps. You have to have a why. And do not allow the community for whatever it is you're collecting dictate your why. It's very easy to enter into a collecting community or any type of hobby, community of hobbyists, where those hobbyists will try and dictate to you how you're supposed to engage in the hobby. There is no rule book on how to engage in any hobby, unless, of course, obviously, if it's something that could, if it's something that requires safety, like if you're dirt biking or if you're if you're rock climbing, then yes, there are rules that you need to abide by. But I'm talking about when it comes to collecting, right? When it comes to collecting, there's no rules on how to collect. And just using the hobby of video game collecting for an example, there'll be a million people who tell you how you're supposed to collect video games, what, how you're supposed to, display your video games, how you should do this and how you shouldn't do that, how often you should play your games. You have to play your games in order to collect them. Bump all that. As long as you know your why, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, who gives a crap what anyone else has to say? You can enjoy the hobby. The beautiful thing about having your own personal why is that it's going to help you build your own unique collection. You won't be worried about what anyone else is doing or having to impress anyone, because at the end of the day, you will feel fulfilled within your own self, because you will know that with each purchase or with each thing that you're adding to the collection, you are helping to achieve your own personal why. This leads me to the next thing that you need to know. You need to know what you're collecting, right? Knowing what you're collecting is one of the biggest ways that you can do what? Ding, 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 save money. When you know what you're collecting, it's a lot easier to not waste money on things that you don't actually want. Um, one of the worst things that you could do is uh, collect what other people are collecting. That makes zero sense, yet I see people do it all the time, especially in the hobby of video games. People don't really have an idea of what they want to collect, but they just want to be a part of the collecting community, especially video games. And so they embark on a journey to collect a whole bunch of things that will make them feel more one within the community, that will make them feel more accepted within the community, that they think people will look and say, "Oh wow, that's a really great game." Don't get me wrong. A lot of times, if you have a game that a lot of people want, they may comment here and there, but at the end of the day, no one really cares because it's not in their collection, it's in yours. So, as much as people will like it and look at it and enjoy it and compliment it, at the end of the night, they're not going to bed thinking about your collection. They're going to bed thinking about what they can add to their collection. And so, you have to know what you're collecting. That's extremely important. Again, do not worry about what anyone else is doing. Don't worry about what the latest uh, gadget is, or latest hot topic or hot item is. That's not important. What matters to you is what matters most, and what matters to you is what's most important when it comes to building your collection. Okay, the biggest thing that you need to know, and I'll say this, and I really mean this, and this is one more thing that you got to know. You have to know what your end game is, right? Collecting is easy to start. It's not so easy to stop. Um, and that's whether you go stop cold turkey or it takes you years and years to stop collecting. You kind of have to have an end game in mind. What's your end goal? Is your end goal to collect a certain number of items? Is it to complete a set? Is it to, at the end of it all, are you going to put them all for display and a place in your room? Are you going to use them and for any other purpose? Are you going to open up a video game store? Are you going to, you know, I don't know, create a lounge type atmosphere where people can come in and play your video games for free? There has to be an end goal with what you plan on doing with all the video games that you're collecting. I think that's important. Some people might say, Y2K, you don't have to have an end goal. You could just keep on collecting. And I mean, if that's what you want to do, then, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I think that that's something that's really important to know, which is what your end goal or what your end game is. And it kind of ties into your why and your what, right? In terms of why you're collecting and what you're collecting, but knowing when your collecting or your collection is going to end and how you're going to leverage that collection is extremely important, because you could spend years collecting a bunch of games that in your mind you think that will allow you to, I don't know, open a video game store. I'm just using that as a scenario, right? Not many people want to open a video game store. But I mean, if you spend a lot of your time collecting a bunch of games that aren't really desirable or don't have a high success rate of selling, now you've spun your wheels and now you have a bunch of video games that no one wants but you. So you kind of, and that's just one example, right? We can think of hundreds, if not thousands, of scenarios. But I think knowing what your end game is important. It's gonna help guide your what. It's also gonna help guide your why, and it's overall just gonna make you a better collector. Look, collecting anything should not feel like a job. It shouldn't feel mandatory, and you shouldn't feel like any certain sense of anxiety just because you didn't get to pick something up or collect something one day or one week or one month. Um, Learn to be an opportunist, right? Don't necessarily feel like you need to spend a lot of the time that you could be spending developing yourself, doing other things, and dedicating that to collecting. I spend a lot of my time these days doing a lot of opportunistic collecting, meaning that even though I'm not, you know, hitting up yard sales and, spending a lot of time out in the wild, whenever I am in the wild or whenever an opportunity does present itself for me to pop into a place that I know sells games and make a purchase, I take advantage. And what you'll realize is that when you do a lot of opportunistic collecting, the universe just has a way of sending stuff to you. I can't tell you how many times I've come home and said, I'm not buying anything else unless, it's a major deal. And then what happens? I walk into somewhere and it's either a major deal or even better, I get a whole box of video games for free. So believe me, I'm not making this stuff up. And you can check my channel if you go back and look at some of my videos. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten free video games, or right when I said I wasn't going to get anything, a major deal just falls right in my lap. So hopefully knowing these three things helps you. Hopefully this quick talk gives you some kind of idea or guidance if you're someone who's just starting off collecting or wanting to build a collection. And if there's anything that I missed, let me know down in the comments. But that does it for me. These are just my thoughts, my suggestions. They're purely subjective, and I'm sure someone will disagree. All right, well, that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.